After my wife's funeral, she left me an old passbook. My daughter threw it into the trash and said, "Throw it away, Dad. Mom never had any money anyway." I still brought it to the bank and the manager turned pale. "Please wait here. We need to call the police." Even the bank director was stunned when he saw it. That was when I realized justice only comes when you actively seek it. And I had a plan. Thank you for watching. Please leave a comment. Where are you watching from? And be honest. Do you trust yourself? A daughter with a $3 million disclaimer? This story contains fictional elements. Names and settings have been changed, but the message behind it remains valid. I'm sorry I couldn't tell you sooner. Those were the last words my wife said to me. Not, "I love you." Not, "Take care of yourself." Just a meaningless apology. I stood beside Claudia's coffin, 3 months after she passed away in her sleep, and those words still haunt me. The Oinger Chapel smelled faintly of lilies and furniture polish. 57 years old. That was all the time she had. And in the last 2 years of her life, she barely looked me in the eye. Back then I didn't understand. Now I still don't understand. Dad. Natalie appeared beside me, her hand gently placed on my arm. My eldest daughter wore black as if she were born for it. Strings of pearls glinted, her flawless makeup making her tears look graceful. "Are you okay, Dad?" I nodded, even though we both knew it was a lie. Across the chapel, Hannah stood alone near the wall. My youngest daughter wore a simple black dress. Her brown hair was pulled back neatly into a simple ponytail. She looked small and lonely. Before I could say anything, a man in a gray suit approached us. Douglas Sinclair. I recognized him vaguely as one of Claudia's colleagues. "Mr. Walsh," he extended his hand. "I am so sorry for your loss. Claudia was a wonderful woman." He reached into his coat and took out a brown envelope. "Claudia asked me to give this to you." After he slid it into my hand, he added, "She was very specific about the timing." I stared at the envelope. My name was written in Claudia's neat handwriting. "What is it?" Natalie asked. "I'm not really sure," Douglas admitted. "She only said it was important." He lowered his voice. "She also told me to tell you, don't trust anyone but yourself." A chill ran down my spine. "What do you mean?" "I don't know, Mr. Walsh." He handed me a business card and disappeared into the crowd. I opened the envelope. Inside was something wrapped in tissue paper and a folded slip of notepaper. I carefully unfolded it. A passbook. The old-fashioned kind. The type banks stopped issuing 20 years ago. The cover was worn, the edges soft from time. On it was printed, Heritage Community Bank, in faded gold lettering. I opened it. Claudia's name, an account number, and a date. March 15th, 1988. "What is that?" Natalie leaned over to look. "A passbook." I flipped through the pages filled with recorded numbers, not understanding dates going back decades. Natalie laughed. Not cruelly, not entirely, but almost. "Close her savings account? Is that what she left you?" She took it away. I took the book and narrowed my eyes. "Dad, this is ancient. Mom probably forgot she even had it." She handed it back to me. "It's just an old passbook. Mom never had any money, Dad. Her whole life she only used coupons. The money in there is probably empty too." She patted my hand. "Don't hold out foolish hope." I unfolded the paper. Claudia's handwriting read, "Gregory, if you are reading this, I am gone. Go to Heritage Community Bank downtown. Ask to see Warren Shields. Don't trust anyone else. I love you." "See? What does it say?" Natalie asked. I folded the paper back up, stepped back, and stuffed everything into my coat pocket. "It's private." "Dad, don't talk like that now, please." 2 hours later, our home in Capitol Hill was filled with people I barely recognized. Neighbors, Claudia's colleagues, people bringing food and sympathy. I didn't know what to do with. I stood in the kitchen staring into space. "Dad, you should eat something." Natalie appeared with a plate of food. "You haven't eaten all day." "I'm not hungry." She set the plate down on the counter. "All right, I'll start cleaning up a bit. People are leaving soon. I watched her move around the kitchen, quick and graceful. She picked up empty cups, wiped the counters. Then she reached for the brown envelope I had left there. "What are you doing?" I said, "I'm just cleaning up." She pulled the passbook out and glanced at it again. "Dad, seriously, this is useless. It's just going to upset you every time you look at it. Let me throw it away for you." She was already walking toward the trash can under the sink. "You don't need these reminders." Paused, hovering the passbook over the trash can. Then she smiled. "Of course, sorry. I was just trying to help." She placed it back on the counter, but I caught something in her eyes, something I didn't recognize. "I need some fresh air," I said, and walked out onto the back porch. Through the kitchen window, I watched Natalie look around. The room was now empty. Everyone had dispersed into the living room. She picked up the passbook again. This time she didn't hesitate. She picked it up and threw it into the trash can, pushing it down beneath a few paper towels. Then she stepped out the back door. A man was waiting for her in the driveway, tall, handsome in an overly polished way. I had seen him outside the church earlier. Natalie glanced back at the house, then leaned in close to him. "Did you get it?" he asked, his voice low. She nodded. "Done. It's trash." "Good." He touched her arm. "Your old man doesn't suspect a thing. He doesn't suspect a thing. He never suspects." They walked away together toward the street, and I stood there on my porch, stunned. Inside, through the kitchen window, I saw Hannah. She had just walked in from the living room. She stood beside the trash can, staring straight down into it. Slowly, she looked up. Our eyes met through the glass. She looked terrified. Then she turned and walked away. I couldn't sleep. The house was too quiet. That's the thing no one tells you about grief. It's the silence that kills you. No sound of Claudia moving around in the bathroom. No soft breathing beside me in bed. An emptiness weighed heavily on my chest like an unbearable burden. At 4:30 a.m. I gave up. I sat on the edge of the bed in the dark, my mind endlessly circling back to the thoughts that had haunted me since yesterday. The passbook. Natalie's hand hovering over the trash can. "Let me throw it away for you." And then, through the kitchen window, watching her drop it in. Watching her walk out to that man in the driveway. Done. It's trash. Why did she throw it away? Claudia had left it for me with a specific warning. Don't trust anyone but yourself. I stood up, threw on my robe, and walked downstairs. The kitchen was dark, lit only by the small stove light. The house still smelled faintly of the food people had brought yesterday, the smell of sympathy and obligation. I stood there for a moment, staring at the trash can under the sink. 58 years old. That was me. 58 years old, and I was about to dig through the trash at dawn, searching for answers my wife couldn't give me while she was alive. I opened the cabinet and pulled out the trash bag. It wasn't full. We had just changed it yesterday morning before everyone arrived. I set it on the floor, untied the string, and began pulling things out. Paper towels, an empty food plate someone had left behind, coffee grounds, a crumpled napkin. And then I felt it. The worn old cover, the soft edges. I carefully retrieved the passbook as if it might disintegrate in my hands. There was a coffee stain smeared on one corner, a damp spot from something else. I wiped it clean with a paper towel and brought it to the kitchen table. My hands were shaking. I sat down under the dim kitchen light and opened the first page. Claudia Coleman Walsh, account number 47820Y69U33. Date opened, March 15, 1988. 37 years ago. We had been married for 22 years back then. Hannah was just a baby, Natalie was 5, and Claudia had opened a savings account I knew nothing about. I turned page after page, examining every single entry, mostly small deposits, $50 here, around $100, sometimes $200. The dates were regular, every month, sometimes twice a month. Page after page documenting Claudia's financial life, written in faded ink and stamped numbers. I turned to the final page. The last entry was dated 2 weeks before she passed away. February 10th, 2025. There was a deposit of $200 and then a balance. But the balance was smudged as if someone had gotten the page wet. I could read the first few numbers, maybe a 3, maybe a 0, but the rest was unreadable. And underneath, stamped in red ink, were 7 lines of text. Unauthorized access attempt. March 15, 2024. Unauthorized access attempt. June 22, 2024. Unauthorized access attempt. August 9, 2024. Unauthorized access attempt. October 30, 2024. Authorized UN access attempt. December 14, 2024. Authorized UN access attempt. January 20th, 2025. Authorized UN access attempt. February 3, 2025. I stared at those red stamps 7 times. Someone had tried to access Claudia's account 7 times in nearly a year. The last time she tried to make contact was just 2 weeks before she passed away. Who and why didn't she tell me? I put the passbook down, my hands still shaking, and pulled the note from my robe pocket. I had read it yesterday at the chapel, but now I read it again. Gregory, if you are reading this, I am gone. I am sorry I couldn't explain while I was alive. I was protecting you. Go to Heritage Community Bank downtown. Ask to see Warren Shields. Don't go to anyone else. Don't tell anyone what you find. Don't trust anyone but yourself. I love you. It was you. It was always you, Dad. See? Protecting you from what you saw. I looked at the 7 red stamps again. Unauthorized access. Someone had tried to access Claudia's account multiple times over nearly a year, and she knew about it. She kept the passbook, kept the proof, but never said a word to me. Don't trust anyone but yourself. Yesterday I thought about Natalie, her hand on my arm. Don't hold out foolish hope, Dad. Her scornful laugh. Mom never had any money. And then, let me throw it away for you. I thought about the man in the driveway. Did you get it? Done. It's trash. My daughter had thrown away what my wife had left for me, what Claudia had protected, what she had kept carefully through 7 access attempts. Why? I stood up, the passbook clutched tightly in my hand, and looked out the kitchen window. The sky was beginning to lighten. Not quite dawn, but close. The neighborhood was still asleep, houses dark, streets empty. Somewhere in this quiet house my daughters were sleeping. One of them looked terrified when she saw the passbook in the trash. The other had thrown it in, and I didn't know which frightened me more. I looked down at the passbook once more, at the 7 red stamps, at Claudia's instructions. Heritage Community Bank, Warren Shields. Don't trust anyone. I folded the note carefully and put it back in my pocket. I wiped the book clean once more, holding it like a fragile, dangerous object. Who tried to access your account, Claudia? I whispered to the empty kitchen. And why didn't you tell me? The house remained silent, but now I knew where to find answers. Heritage Community Bank didn't open until 9:00, but I was standing outside the glass doors at 8:30. I had barely slept after finding the passbook, just sat at the kitchen table in the dark, staring at those 7 red stamps, trying to make sense of what I was seeing. By sunrise, I had made coffee, though I didn't drink it, and put on the first clean shirt I could find. I had to know. When they opened the doors, the lobby was empty. Marble floors, high ceilings, the kind of old-fashioned bank that had been here since before Denver became what it is now. A young teller looked up from behind the counter. How can I help you? I need to see Warren Shields, I said. My voice sounded strange, hollow. Do you have an appointment? I pulled the passbook from my coat pocket and placed it on the counter between us. My wife told me to ask for Warren Shields, nobody else. The teller looked at the passbook, then looked at me. Her expression changed. Please wait a moment. She disappeared through the door behind the counter. I stood there, gripping the edge of the marble as if it were the only solid thing left in the world. 2 minutes later, a man stepped out. About 50 years old, silver hair, wire-rimmed glasses, wearing a suit that looked like he'd worn it every day for 20 years. He walked straight up to me. Mr. Walsh? Yes, I'm Warren Shields, the branch manager. He extended his hand, his grip firm and decisive. I've been waiting for you. Please follow me. He led me across the lobby, past the tellers, into a small office with a desk, 2 chairs, and a computer that looked older than my marriage. He closed the door behind us. I am so sorry for your loss, he said softly. Claudia was a wonderful customer, a wonderful woman. You knew her for many years? He gestured toward the chair across from his desk. Please sit down. I sat down and placed the passbook on the desk between us. Warren picked it up carefully, as if it were fragile. He opened it, flipped past the first page, then turned to his computer and began typing. I watched numbers and letters scroll across the screen. Account numbers, dates, things I didn't understand. Then he paused, leaned forward and stared at the screen for a long time. Mr. Walsh, he said slowly, do you know what is in this account? No. My throat was dry. The balance was smudged. I couldn't read it. He turned the screen toward me. Account 4782-40156-933. Account owner, Claudia Coleman Walsh. Joint account owner, Gregory Walsh. As of February 15, 2022, the current balance is $3,047,612.83. $3,047,612.83. I stared at the number until it stopped making sense, until the digits blurred into something abstract. That's impossible. That can't be right, I heard myself say. I assure you it is exact. Warren's voice was gentle. Your wife opened this account in 1988. She deposited money regularly for 37 years. Mostly small amounts, never enough to draw attention, but steady and disciplined. He paused. Compound interest over that period of time is substantial. 37 years. I did the math in my head. 37 years meant 1988. Hannah was born in 1995, Natalie in 1990. Claudia started saving 2 years before Natalie was born, before my promotion at the engineering firm. Back then, we lived in a small rented apartment on York Street and ate spaghetti 3 nights a week because that was all we could afford. I didn't know, I said. She never told me. She was very clear that you wouldn't know. Warren folded his hands on the desk. 3 years ago, she came in and added you as a joint owner on the account. She said if anything happened to her, you needed immediate access without probate, without delay. About 3 years ago, right around the time the unauthorized access attempts began. There are 7 red stamps in the passbook, I said. Warren's face darkened. Yes. I need to explain those stamps. He turned back to the computer and opened another screen. In the past year, someone has tried to withdraw or transfer funds from this account 7 times. Each time using forged documents, forged signatures. Who? I didn't answer right away. Instead, he opened his desk drawer and pulled out a thick, professional-looking brown folder. He pushed it across the desk toward me. Security images, he said. From every single attempt. I opened the folder. Inside were printouts, time-stamped photos from the bank's security cameras, black and white, grainy but clear enough. The first photo was dated March 15, 2024. A woman at the teller counter, dark hair pulled back, wearing an expensive coat, looking confident. Natalie. I flipped to the next photo. June 22, 2024. The same woman, a different outfit, but the same confident smile. The third one, August 9th, was still Natalie. Once again, I looked through all 7 photos. Every single one of them was my daughter. Different dates, different clothes, but the same face. She tried 7 times, Warren said quietly. The first 6 times she tried to withdraw money using a power of attorney, but the signature didn't match our records. Our system flagged it immediately. And the 7th time, she tried to change the account beneficiary, removing your name and adding hers. He paused. That attempt was made on February 3rd, 3 weeks before your wife passed away. I put the photos down. My hands were shaking again. Why didn't you call the police? Your wife wouldn't allow us to. Warren's voice was more cautious now. Every time there was an intrusion attempt, the system automatically called Claudia to verify. Every time she refused to press charges, she said she would handle it herself. He looked at me. She also made it clear that you were not to be notified, not until after she passed away. Why? I don't know, Mr. Walsh, but I can tell you this. 3 years ago, when she added you to the account, Claudia told me something. She said, Warren, if anything happens to me, my husband will need answers and he will need to be protected. She asked me to keep these records, all of them, the photos, the forged documents, everything. He pulled another folder from his drawer, even thicker than the first one. She was building a case, Warren said, against her own daughter. Those words hung in the air between us. Against her own daughter, my daughter, our daughter, $3 million, 37 years of secret savings, 7 attempts to steal it. All of this happening while Claudia was dying, and I had no idea. I looked down at the photos again, at Natalie's face, at the confidence in her posture, her smug smile. Mom never had any money, Dad. Whatever is in there is probably empty. Let me throw it away for you. She knew. She had known all along. Mr. Walsh. Warren's voice pulled me back. There is one more thing. I looked up. Your wife also left something in our vault. A safe deposit box. He stood up and took a small key from his desk drawer. She instructed me to open it for you as soon as you came in. He held out the key. Do you want to open it? I took the key. It was small, cold, and heavy with the weight of whatever it unlocked. Yes, I said. I sat in the vault room for a long time after reading Claudia's letter, staring into space. The journals lay on the table in front of me. 5 years of proof. 5 years of my wife watching our family fall apart and bearing the burden all by herself. He will never believe his precious daughter is a thief. She was right, but it was worse than that. 3 years ago, Hannah came over for dinner. It was just the 4 of us, me, Claudia, and both girls. This rarely happened. Natalie was always busy. Hannah was quiet as usual, just picking at her food. Halfway through the meal, Hannah put her fork down. Dad, I need to talk to you about something. Natalie looked up, her eyes sharp. What is it? What is it, sweetheart? I asked. Hannah hesitated, glancing at her older sister. The thing is, Natalie borrowed money from me last year, $20,000. She said she would pay it back in 6 months. It's been 14 months now. Hannah. Natalie's voice was soft, full of hurt. I told you I'm trying to pay you back. Things have been so difficult. I know, but I'm struggling with rent. Why would you bring this up at dinner? Natalie's eyes welled with tears. The tears fell right on cue in front of our parents. You know, I've been dealing with the divorce and business problems. I didn't mean to say things were fine. Natalie stood up, wiping her tears with a napkin. I understand. You need the money. I'll figure something out. She looked at me. I'm sorry, Dad. I didn't want you to see me like this. She grabbed her purse and headed for the door. I followed her out to the yard. Sweetheart, it's okay. Everyone is having a hard time financially right now. I don't want to be a burden to you. She wiped her tears. Hannah is right. I should have paid her back. I'm failing at everything. You are not failing. You're just going through a tough time. I pulled out my wallet. How much do you need right now? Dad, no. How much? She hesitated. If I could borrow $30,000, I could pay Hannah back and cover my expenses until the new contract is signed. All right. I wrote her a check right there on the spot. Pay Hannah back first. The rest is yours. She hugged me. Thank you, Dad. I don't know what I would do without you. I watched her drive away. Then I went back inside. Hannah was clearing the table, her face flushed red. Claudia stood by the sink, her back to me. That wasn't fair to Natalie, I said to Hannah. Why would you suddenly bring up money in front of everyone? Hannah's hands stiffened on the plates. Suddenly bring up money in front of everyone? If you needed to discuss it, you should have called her privately. I called her 15 times. She never answers. She's going through a divorce. Hannah, try to be more understanding. Understanding? Hannah's voice trembled. Dad, she... Enough. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't need to. Your sister is struggling. The least you could do is show some compassion instead of jealousy. The word jealousy hung in the air. Hannah set the plates down carefully and grabbed her purse. I should go. Hannah. But she was already out the door. Claudia never turned around from the sink, never said a word. 2 years ago, I came home from work and found Claudia sitting at the kitchen table, staring into space. I had noticed it more and more. The distance, the silence, the way she barely looked at me anymore. Hey, I set my briefcase down. Are you okay? She didn't answer right away. When she did, her voice was flat. I'm fine. You don't look fine. You haven't been fine for months. I sat across from her. Talk to me. Nothing is going on. I said I'm fine, Gregory. She stood up, went to the sink, and started washing dishes that were already clean. What about us? I asked softly. Are we okay? We're fine. But we weren't fine. I knew we weren't fine. I just didn't know why. That weekend, Natalie stopped by. She found me in the garage organizing tools that didn't need to be organized. Dad, are you okay? Yeah, just thinking. She leaned against the workbench. Is it Mom? I looked up. What? Mom, she seems distant lately. Is everything okay between you two? I don't know. The confession made me feel like I had failed. Mom won't talk to me. Natalie nodded slowly. She talked to me about you last week. My chest tightened. What did she say? I don't know if I should say it. Natalie, please. She hesitated. She said she feels like you don't make time for her anymore, that you're always working and she's all alone. I'm sorry, Dad. I shouldn't have told you. I just hate seeing you both like this. After Natalie left, I tried harder. I came home early, suggested going out for dinner, taking weekend getaways. But every time Claudia had an excuse. She was tired. She had to work. She wasn't feeling well. Eventually, I stopped trying. What I didn't know was that Claudia had never said any of those things. She had never complained about my working late. She had never said she felt lonely. And Natalie had gone to Claudia as well, telling her that I said I was tired of her nagging, that I felt suffocated, that I needed my own space. That was a lie, too. For 2 years, my daughter stood between us, sowing lies about each other, creating distance where there was none, making sure we were too hurt, too confused, too proud to actually talk. And I believed every word she said. The vault room flashed back into my mind. The journals, the letter. Even when I seemed cold over the past 2 years, I was always trying to protect you. She wasn't cold. She was terrified, watching her daughter destroy our family and knowing that if she told me, I would never believe her. She was right. I wouldn't have believed her. My phone vibrated. Hannah's name appeared on the screen. I answered. Hannah. Dad, where are you? Her voice was trembling. At the bank. Why? What's wrong? I need to talk to you about Natalie. A silence. And about Derek. My blood ran cold. Who is Derek? Is he Natalie's boyfriend or husband? I don't know anymore. She spoke faster. Dad, I should have told you sooner. I should have said something at the funeral, but I was scared. Hannah, calm down. What about Derek? How was the one who convinced me to take out an $80,000 loan 3 years ago? He and Natalie came to me together with this investment opportunity. They said I would double my money in 2 years. I trusted them. Her voice choked up. And then they both disappeared. I've been paying off that debt for 3 years. And just last week I found out Derek has done this to other people before, other families. He has a criminal record. The man outside in the driveway. Did you get it? Where are you? I asked. At home. Dad, are you okay? Your voice sounds like, I'm coming over. Don't go anywhere. Don't talk to Natalie. Don't answer if she calls. All right, Dad, I'll be there in 20 minutes. I hung up and looked down at Claudia's letter once more. Natalie wasn't working alone. Now I had a name. Derek. Washington Park, when I arrived, was almost empty on a late weekday morning. Hannah sat on a bench near the lake, her arms wrapped around herself as if trying to hold something back. I sat down beside her. Both of us remained silent for a moment, just watching the ducks glide smoothly across the water. Thank you for coming, she finally said. You said you needed to talk about Derek. She nodded. 3 years ago, Natalie called me, asking to get coffee. Just the two of us, sister time. A bitter smile. We hadn't done that in years. I should have known something was wrong. What happened? She brought someone with her. Derek introduced himself as her boyfriend. He was charming, confident, the kind of person who makes you feel special. Hannah's hands clasped tightly in her lap. They told me about an investment opportunity, a real estate development in Colorado Springs. Derek showed me projections and testimonials. It looked legitimate. How much money? $80,000. She spoke quickly. I told them I didn't have that kind of money. Derek said I could take out a loan, that the returns would be so good I'd pay it off in 18 months and still make a profit. He promised to double my investment in 2 years. And you believed him? Natalie vouched for him. Dad, she said she had already invested. She said you and Mom were thinking about it too. Hannah looked at me. Is that true? No, we had never heard of it. She closed her eyes. Of course not. So I took out the loan. First Mountain Credit Union, $80,000 at 12% interest. No collateral, so the rate was high. I thought it wouldn't matter because I'd pay it off quickly. What happened? For 6 months, Derek kept sending updates and photos, construction sites, progress reports. Then the updates stopped. Silence. She rubbed her eyes. I tried calling, texting. He disappeared. Natalie said he had to leave town for an emergency. She said she was worried too, that she had lost money. Did you believe her? I wanted to believe her. She's my sister. Hannah's voice grew bitter. But then the payments came due, $1,800 a month. I'm a graphic designer, Dad. I couldn't afford rent and the loan. I couldn't even afford groceries. Months went by. I sold my car, stopped going out, worked constantly. I thought about the dinner 3 years ago. I wrote a check for Natalie. I called Hannah jealous. Why didn't you tell me? I tried. Her voice trailed off. That night when you asked Natalie about the money, you called me jealous. After that, I thought there was no point. You weren't stupid, but you were deceived. For 2 whole years, I paid that loan every month, $1,800. I moved to a cheaper apartment, ate instant noodles. I couldn't even afford to go anywhere. I took leave just to attend Mom's funeral. Tears streamed down her face. Then 8 months ago, the credit union called, saying my loan was paid in full. $80,000, gone. They said it was an anonymous payment. You wouldn't know who it was. I thought maybe Natalie felt guilty or Derek had paid me back. I didn't understand. She looked at me. Until yesterday. I saw you holding the passbook, saw Natalie throw it away, and I knew Mom had been watching everything. I took the receipt from inside my coat and handed it to her. Hannah read it slowly. Loan paid in full. Hannah Walsh. $80,000 paid by Claudia Coleman Walsh. She saved me, Hannah whispered. She knew I was drowning and said nothing. She simply saved me. She loved me. She wanted to protect me. Why didn't she tell me? Because if she had, it would have torn the family apart. She was quietly gathering evidence, and then she passed away before she could finish. Yeah, we sat in silence. The ducks kept swimming. The world kept moving. There's one more thing, Hannah said about Derek. I looked at her. Afterward, I searched for information about him online. Derek Samuel Morrison, 40 years old. He has a criminal record. She pulled out her phone and showed me a mugshot. It was the same man from the driveway earlier. Elderly fraud, financial exploitation. Arrested in Florida in 2012, Arizona in 2016. Both times he targeted the elderly, set up fake businesses, stole retirement funds. He served time in both states. A chill ran down my spine. And now he's with Natalie. Yeah. Hannah's voice was calmer now. He's done this before, Dad, with other families. I think he targeted Natalie. He used her to get to the rest of us. I stared at the photo. Derek Samuel Morrison, the man who induced my daughter to steal. The man who tried to take $3 million from my wife. The man who was still out there. We are going to the police station, I said, right now. Hannah nodded. Okay. But as we stood up to leave, I looked back at the lake, thinking of Claudia. How she had seen all of this. How she had saved Hannah without taking any credit. Don't trust anyone but yourself. Derek wasn't just Natalie's boyfriend. He was a predator, and we were the prey. When we got home, it was already dark. Hannah placed her laptop on the kitchen table and opened it. Her hands were steadier now, more focused. Let me show you what I found. I pulled up a chair beside her. She typed Derek Samuel Morrison into the search bar. The results filled the page. News articles, court records, mugshots, a trail of destruction spanning over a decade. She clicked on the first article. Miami Herald, August 2012. Local man arrested in elderly fraud scheme. Derek's mugshot stared back at me. Younger, but the same face, the same smile. Hannah read aloud. Derek Samuel Morrison, 32, was arrested for defrauding 3 elderly victims of $420,000. charged with wire fraud, identity theft, and elderly exploitation. What happened to him? He pled guilty and was sentenced to 18 months in a Florida state prison, released in March 2014. And then she clicked on another article. Phoenix New Times, October 2016. Man sentenced in retirement fraud scheme. Derek Morrison, 36, sentenced to 2 years in prison. For years, he had targeted retirees. He posed as a financial advisor, convincing victims to withdraw all their money from their retirement accounts. Total damages exceeded $600,000. I stared at the screen. He went to prison, got out, and did it all over again. Yeah, released from an Arizona prison in December 2018. She opened his Facebook profile. A month later, he was in Colorado. The profile showed Derek at Red Rocks in January 2019. She scrolled through his photos, mostly ordinary shots of hiking, restaurants, concerts. Then she paused at a photo taken in April 2019. Derek and Natalie, his arm wrapped around her shoulders, smiling brightly and genuinely. 6 years ago, I said softly, right after he arrived in Colorado. She scrolled through more photos. May 2019, a Rockies game. June dinner at an upscale restaurant. August 2019, a selfie in front of my house. My house. He targeted her, I said. Look at this. Hannah opened another article. Arizona Republic, November 2016. 2 women arrested in elderly scam. 2 mugshots. Both women in their 30s, both attractive, well-dressed. Melissa Craig and Jennifer Morrison. Both had romantic ties to Derek Morrison, who was arrested for conspiracy to commit fraud. Prosecutors accused the 2 women of helping Morrison identify and access victims. Craig was sentenced to 3 years in prison. Morrison, Derek's wife, was sentenced to 5 years. His wife went to prison too. Both of them did, or his girlfriends. Hannah opened another article. The first one was in Florida. Sarah Bennett helped Derek forge documents and access bank accounts. 2 years in prison. I sat in silence. He finds women, uses them, and when everything falls apart, he disappears while they go to prison. 3 times that we know of. Florida, Arizona, Colorado. The same pattern. Meet a woman, charm her, get her to help him target people, usually her own family. When it crumbles, she goes to jail, and he walks away free. And now he had been with Natalie for 6 years. I thought about Claudia's journal. The first entry was March 2020, a year after Derek appeared. He had spent a year setting the stage before Natalie started stealing. He was patient. Hannah scrolled through more photos. Derek at Thanksgiving in 2019. I barely remembered. I recalled him being there, just a guy Natalie was dating. Quiet, polite, unmemorable. That was the whole point. Look at this. She opened a website. Morrison Financial Consulting. Professional logo. Sleek design. Photos of office buildings and satisfied clients. This is the company he used for my presentation. Looks legitimate, right? I skimmed the page. Testimonials, performance charts, a Denver address. All fake. The address was a UPS store. The phone number was a burner. The testimonials were stock photos. That woman, she pointed to a smiling blonde woman. She's a Russian stock photo model. Never invested a dime with Derek. I felt sick to my stomach. How did you find all this? I had 3 years to figure it out, Dad. 3 years of paying off that loan and wondering who he really was. She closed the laptop. He's a predator. He's careful. He's smart. And he's still out there. I stood up and walked to the window. The street outside was quiet, normal. Somewhere out there, Derek Morrison was planning his next move. Or maybe he had already found a new woman in another state. There's one more thing, Hannah said. I turned back. She had opened one of the folders I brought home from the bank. You said Claudia left emails. Can I see them? I handed her the printed stack of emails. She flipped through them quickly, then stopped. Look at the date. February 24th, 2025, the day Claudia died. This email is from Derek to Natalie. Blank subject line. She's gone. We just need to throw away the passbook and the old man won't know a thing. Stick to the plan. I had read it 3 times. The old lady is gone. Claudia died that morning. By that evening, Derek was already planning the cover-up. Stick to the plan. This wasn't an impulse. This wasn't Natalie acting alone. Derek had been executing this plan for 6 years, waiting for Claudia to die so they could claim the money, and Natalie had helped him the entire time. "We need to go to the police," Hannah said, "right now." I looked at the email again. Derek's words were cold, indifferent, calculated. My daughter hadn't just been duped by a scammer. She had become his accomplice. And my wife had known, documented everything, and tried to build a case strong enough to stop them both. Don't trust anyone but yourself. I folded the email and placed it back into the folder with Claudia's other evidence. "Let's go," I said. Hannah put on her coat. I grabbed the folder. Together we stepped out into the night. Somewhere out there, Derek Morrison was still free, but not for long. The Denver Police Department was busier than I expected. At 9 a.m., phones rang constantly, officers moved between desks, and fluorescent lights made everything look harsh and real. Hannah and I stood at the front desk. I held the folder tightly against my chest like a shield. "How can I help you?" The duty officer looked tired. "I need to report a crime, financial fraud, elder exploitation." He picked up the phone. "Let me get someone from financial crimes." 10 minutes later, a woman in a gray blazer appeared. Dark hair pulled back neatly, sharp eyes. "Mr. Walsh, I'm Detective Rebecca Stone." She shook my hand firmly. "You mentioned elder exploitation? My wife passed away 3 months ago. She left documents, evidence. Follow me." She led us to a small interview room. Gray walls, a table, 3 chairs. "This is my daughter, Hannah." Rebecca nodded. "Sit down. Tell me what's going on." I placed the folder on the table and pulled out the passbook first. My wife saved $3 million over 37 years. I didn't know until after she died. Someone tried to access the account 7 times using forged documents. Rebecca picked up the passbook and flipped through it. Her gaze sharpened. "Who?" "My daughter, Natalie. The bank has security footage." I pulled out the photos. Rebecca examined each one closely. "And here," I pointed to the journals, "my wife documented everything. 5 years. Every lie, every stolen dollar, every manipulation." I opened the first journal. She had started recording from the day she discovered Natalie forged her signature. Rebecca read in silence, her jaw clenched tight. She picked up the second journal, then the third. "Your wife was building a criminal case." "I know. Why didn't she come to us while she was alive? She wanted undeniable proof, and she was protecting me. She knew I wouldn't believe it." I looked down at my hands. She was right. Rebecca set the journals down. "What else?" I pulled out the receipts. $250,000 my daughter had borrowed from me over 5 years, never paid back. And here is my wife having paid off Hannah's $80,000 debt, a debt that Natalie and her boyfriend created through a scam. So her boyfriend is Derek Samuel Morrison. Hannah showed Rebecca the mugshot. 2 prior convictions for elderly fraud in Florida and Arizona. Rebecca's expression shifted. She picked up her phone, examined the photo closely, then turned to her computer. "Derek Morrison, I know this name. The FBI put him on a watch list for federal fraud. He's been with Natalie for 6 years," I said. "I think he targeted her to get to our family. Proof." I handed her the email. "The old lady is gone." Rebecca read it twice. When she raised her head, her eyes were cold. "It's as if this email was sent on the day your wife died." "Yes." "Mr. Walsh, do you believe your daughter had anything to do with your wife's death?" The question hit me like a punch to the face. "Claudia died of a heart attack, natural causes." "Are you sure?" "Death certificate." I paused. "Why do you ask?" When I see a suspicious death accompanied by an email about covering up a crime, I have to ask. She made a note. "I will request the medical examiner's records." I couldn't breathe. "Let me tell you what I see here," Rebecca said, outlining elder financial abuse, identity theft, forgery, and conspiracy to commit fraud. At minimum, 7 criminal counts against Natalie Walsh. If Derek Morrison is involved, we're looking at federal fraud charges, possibly RICO charges. "There are 3 more victims," Hannah said quietly. Rebecca looked up. "What?" Natalie worked as a care coordinator for an elderly services nonprofit from 2020 to 2023. She had access to elderly clients. 3 people filed complaints about missing money. The nonprofit fired her, but no one pressed charges. Rebecca's pen moved rapidly across the pad. Names? Hannah pulled out a piece of paper. Evelyn Tucker, 78 years old. $15,000 in a fake real estate investment. Raymond Fisher, 83 years old. $22,000 in a fake veterans charity scam. Irene Fletcher, 80 years old. She was my mother's neighbor. $18,000 for fake home repairs. Rebecca stared at the list. Your sister targeted the elderly for 3 years. This isn't just a family matter. She looked at me. Your daughter and Derek Morrison are serial predators. Multiple victims, multiple schemes. This is organized crime. The room felt stiflingly small. Now what? I asked. I will open a formal investigation. I will contact the FBI regarding Morrison. I will reach out to these victims for statements. She looked at me. And I need your statement too. Everything. Chronological order, what Natalie said and did. I'll do it. Do you understand what this means? If we arrest Natalie, you will have to testify in court. Stand up and tell a jury that your daughter is a criminal. My throat tightened. She is a criminal. Rebecca nodded slowly. Then we proceed. I will pull bank records and security footage, bring the victims in, and prepare the arrest warrant. She paused. Mr. Walsh, we will arrest your daughter tomorrow. She will be brought before a judge within 48 hours. Are you ready? Was I ready to see my daughter in handcuffs? To see her in court? To testify against her? No. But Claudia was ready. She had prepared for years and borne this burden alone. Now I had to finish what she started. Yes, I said, I'm ready. Rebecca stood up and extended her hand. Then let's get justice for your wife. I shook her hand, and for the first time since Claudia died, I felt I was doing what she wanted. Not forgiveness, not leniency, but justice. 2 days later, I stood across the street from Natalie's house in Cherry Hills Village and watched 2 police cruisers pull up to the curb. I didn't have to be there. Rebecca had told me so. But I needed to see it with my own eyes. I needed to know it was real. The house was massive. 3 stories. Brick facade. Perfectly manicured lawn. 4 years ago, I had helped Natalie with the down payment. $50,000, which I thought was for her future. Now I knew where that money actually came from. Rebecca stepped out of the lead car, 2 uniformed officers behind her. They walked up the curved driveway to the front door. Rebecca knocked. It took 30 seconds before the door opened. Natalie stood there in yoga pants and an expensive sweater. Her hair was immaculate. Her makeup was perfect. She looked like she was about to go to lunch, not get arrested. She saw Rebecca's badge and her face paled. Can I help you? Natalie Walsh? Yes. I am Detective Rebecca Stone with the Denver Police Department. I have a warrant for your arrest. Rebecca pulled out the paper. Charges include elder financial abuse, identity theft, forgery, and conspiracy to commit fraud. Natalie's mouth fell open. But there must be some mistake. There is no mistake. Please turn around and put your hands behind your back. Wait, hold on. Natalie's voice rose. I need to call my lawyer. I can't just turn around. You can call your lawyer from the station. At that moment, Natalie spotted me standing across the street watching. Her face went gray. Dad. I didn't move. Dad, what is going on? What did you tell them? Rebecca pulled out the handcuffs. Ma'am, I'm not going to ask you again. No, this is crazy. Natalie backed away. Dad, tell them this is a mistake. Tell them. 2 neighbors stepped out of their houses onto their porches to watch. Dad, please. Natalie's voice choked up. Real tears, or what looked like real tears. I couldn't tell anymore. I made mistakes, okay? But I'm your daughter. You can't let them do this to me. I slowly crossed the street and stopped at the edge of her driveway. Natalie looked at me as if I were her last hope. Dad, please. I know I did wrong. I know I borrowed too much money, but we can fix this as a family. We don't need the police, please. I reached into my coat, pulled out the journal from 2023, and opened it to the page I had marked. October 12, 2023. I read aloud. Natalie came over today, asking if I had updated my will recently. I said no. She said, Mom, you're not getting any younger. You should think about it. Then she laughed like it was a joke, but I saw her face. I saw what she was really thinking. Later, when she thought I couldn't hear, she was on the phone in the kitchen. She said, I don't know how much longer she has. It can wait. The old people need to hurry up and die so I can finally get what's mine." Natalie's face turned from pale to ash gray. "My mother wrote that 4 months before she died." I looked at my daughter, looking at the stranger wearing my daughter's face. "You wanted her dead because you wanted her money. That is not who I am." Natalie's voice trembled. "Dad, she misunderstood. I was talking about something else. A business deal, not her. Never her. Mom was a professional accountant for 30 years. She never got the numbers wrong. She didn't misunderstand words, and she didn't misunderstand you." I closed the journal. "You're not my daughter anymore. My daughter died the day you chose money over her." Natalie's face crumpled. No, Mom didn't mean that." "Turn around," Rebecca said softly. Natalie turned around. The handcuffs clicked into place. She began to cry uncontrollably. "Dad, please, I'm sorry, I'm so sorry. I'll fix this, I'll pay it all back. Please don't do this." But she wasn't remorseful. She was caught. There is a difference. Rebecca led her toward the police cruiser, reading her rights. Natalie kept looking back at me, tears streaming down her face. "What about Derek?" I asked Rebecca. "He's gone. Left town 2 days ago. We've issued a warrant, but he's on the run," she said, opening the back door of the police car. "The FBI is tracking him for federal flight. He'll turn up." Natalie was placed in the back seat. Through the window I could see her crying, her mouth moving, probably still apologizing, still trying to manipulate, still believing there was a way out. The patrol car drove off. Another car pulled up behind it, a sleek, expensive black sedan. A man stepped out wearing a suit that probably cost more than my mortgage payment. "Mr. Walsh." He extended his hand. I didn't take it. "Aaron Mitchell, I am representing your daughter." "I know who you are. Then you know I'm very good at my job." He smiled, a smile that didn't reach his eyes. "I've reviewed the initial charges. It looks noisy, but noise doesn't win cases. Evidence does. And evidence can be complicated. My wife left 5 years of documentation. Documentation written by a deceased woman who cannot testify to its accuracy. A woman who, by her own admission, kept secrets from her husband. Who is to say what was real and what was paranoia?" My hands clenched into fists. "Are you calling my wife a liar?" "I'm saying grief makes people do strange things. It makes them see patterns that aren't there and make accusations that won't hold up in court." He adjusted his cufflinks. "My client will not be pleading guilty, and I will see you in court, Mr. Walsh, where you will have to stand before a jury and accuse your own daughter of wanting her mother dead. Think about how that is going to feel." He got into his car and drove away. I stood there on the street. Natalie's neighbors had gone back inside. The street was quiet again, normal, as if nothing had happened, yet everything had. My phone buzzed. It was Hannah. "Dad, are you two okay?" I looked at Natalie's picture-perfect house, at the life she had built on stolen money, a facade that was finally cracking open. "No," I said, "but I will be." "Where are you?" "On my way home." I got into my car and drove away from Cherry Hills Village, away from the daughter I once knew. Rebecca had said Natalie would be arraigned tomorrow, that the trial could start in a few weeks, and that I would have to testify, stand before the court and repeat everything Claudia had written, everything Natalie had said. It was done. Aaron Mitchell thought that would break me. He was wrong. I was broken at Claudia's funeral, in the bank vault reading 5 years of journals that showed how blind I had been. This wouldn't break me. This was helping me heal. The courtroom smelled strongly of floor cleaner and desperation. I had been in a courtroom once before for jury duty, and once for a traffic violation when I was young, but never like this. Never sitting in the gallery watching my daughter at the defense table. Her hands were carefully folded, her face devoid of emotion. 3 weeks had passed since the arrest. 3 weeks of sleeplessness and phone calls with Rebecca. 3 weeks of preparing myself for this moment. Hannah sat beside me, her hand finding mine and squeezing tightly. The room was crowded. The media sat in the back rows alongside Natalie's neighbors, people I didn't recognize. In the third row on the left, 3 elderly people sat together. Evelyn Tucker, Raymond Fisher, and Irene Fletcher, the people my daughter had stolen from. I noticed Irene. She was Claudia's friend, someone who used to come to our house for coffee and trusted us. She gave me a single nod, her face sad but resolute. I nodded back. All rise. Judge Patricia Morrison entered, a woman in her 60s with silver hair and sharp eyes that missed nothing. We sat down as she took the bench. The State of Colorado versus Natalie Elizabeth Walsh, the bailiff announced. Case number 2025 CR 01847. I looked at Natalie. She was dressed in a navy blue suit, her hair tied neatly back. She looked smaller than I remembered, young, like the daughter I knew before she met Derek, before the thefts, before all of it. Aaron Mitchell sat beside her in his expensive suit, his expression calm. Across the room, Andrea Connolly stood at the prosecution table. In her early 40s, wearing a dark suit, she sat before a stack of folders that I knew contained 5 years of Claudia's records. Ms. Connolly, Judge Morrison said, opening statement. Andrea stood up, walked to the center of the room, and faced the jury. 12 people who would decide my daughter's fate. Thank you, Your Honor. Her voice was clear and powerful. Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, this case is about trust, about family, and about what happens when someone calculatedly violates both. She gestured toward the screen on the wall. A photo appeared. Claudia, smiling, alive. My chest tightened. This is Claudia Coleman Walsh. For 37 years, she saved money. Small amounts, $50 here, $100 there. She was a certified accountant, a woman who understood numbers and planning. By 2025, she had saved $347,000. The jury leaned forward. Claudia never told anyone about this account. Not her husband, nor her daughters. She kept it secret out of fear. Fear of the defendant. Andrea pointed directly at Natalie. Because for 5 years, the defendant attempted to steal that money. 7 times. 7 separate occasions using forged documents, forged signatures, and lies. Andrea flipped through the images. Security footage from the bank showing Natalie at the teller counter. Different days, different clothes, same face. The defendant did not act on impulse. This was a calculated, patient, and ruthless act. While her mother was dying, the defendant tried to take her entire life savings. And when her attempts at the bank failed, she turned to other victims. 3 more photos appeared, Evelyn, Raymond, and Irene. Evelyn Tucker, 78 years old. The defendant convinced her to invest $15,000 in a fake real estate fund. Raymond Fisher, 83 years old. The defendant operated a fake charity and stole $22,000 intended for veterans. Irene Fletcher, 80 years old. The defendant took an $18,000 deposit for home repairs that were never performed. Andrea's voice hardened. 3 elderly victims, $55,000 stolen. And that does not include the $250,000 the defendant borrowed from her father and never returned, or the $80,000 she and her accomplice stole from her own sister. Hannah's hand squeezed mine tighter. The charges include 7 counts of attempted fraud, 3 counts of elder financial abuse, identity theft, forgery, and conspiracy to commit fraud. The evidence will show that Natalie Walsh is not a victim. She is a predator, and you will have the opportunity to hold her accountable. Andrea sat down. Judge Morrison looked over at Aaron Mitchell. Mr. Mitchell, your opening statement. Aaron stood up, buttoned his jacket, and walked slowly to the center of the room. He didn't look at the jury right away. He looked at Natalie, letting them see his client, young, vulnerable, and alone. Ladies and gentlemen, my name is Aaron Mitchell, and I represent Natalie Walsh. I am here to tell you about the real predator in this case. He paused. Derek Samuel Morrison. He pressed a button, and Derek's mugshot appeared on the screen. Derek Morrison, 40 years old. 2 prior convictions for elderly fraud in Florida and Arizona. A professional con man who targets women, manipulates them, uses them to take money, and then disappears when things go wrong. Derek Morrison met Natalie Walsh 6 years ago. He was charming and confident. He said he loved her. And slowly, methodically, he turned her into his instrument of crime. Aaron's voice grew gentle and sympathetic. The prosecution wants you to believe that Natalie is a mastermind, but the evidence will show that she is a victim, a woman manipulated by a professional criminal. Yes, she made mistakes. Yes, she trusted the wrong person, but making mistakes does not make you a criminal. He gestured toward the empty chair next to Natalie. Derek Morrison is not here. He fled, abandoning Natalie as soon as the police got involved, because that is who he is. He uses women and leaves them to face the consequences alone. That is exactly what happened to two other women, both of whom went to prison while Derek walked free. Aaron turned to the jury. The prosecution has documents. They have the journals of a woman who tragically passed away and cannot be cross-examined. They have security footage showing Natalie at the bank, but it doesn't show what Derek told her to do, the threats he made, or the control he had over her. He paused, letting his words sink in. My client is not entirely blameless, but she is innocent of being a predator. She is the victim of a predator, and I ask you to see the difference. He sat down. Judge Morrison looked at the jury. You have heard the opening statements. The prosecution will now present its case. This trial will determine whether Natalie Walsh is a victim, as the defense claims, or a willing participant in a 5-year scheme to defraud her family and vulnerable elderly people. She turned to Andrea. Call your first witness. Andrea stood up, her eyes meeting mine. The entire room fell silent. The prosecution calls Gregory Walsh to the stand. Hannah squeezed my hand once more before letting go. I stood up, my legs trembling. Every eye in the room was fixed on me as I walked to the witness stand. The bailiff held out a Bible. Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? I looked at Natalie. She was staring at me, her eyes filled with tears. I do, I said. I sat down. Andrea approached. Behind her, Natalie looked small and frightened at the defense table. Aaron Mitchell's pen was poised over his notepad, ready to tear apart everything I was about to say. And somewhere in the third row, 3 elderly people were waiting to hear the truth about what my daughter had done to them, to all of us. Andrea's first question was simple. Mr. Walsh, how long were you married to Claudia Coleman Walsh? 36 years. And when did you learn about the $3 million account? I took a deep breath. On the day of her funeral. Can you tell the jury what happened that day? And I did. I told them everything. They asked me to tell the truth, so I gave them the whole story, even the parts that broke my heart. Andrea stood before the witness stand while the 12 jurors watched. Natalie sat at the defense table, hands folded, her face pale. Mr. Walsh, tell the jury what happened on the day of your wife's funeral. I took a breath. A lawyer handed me an envelope. Inside was a passbook and a note from my wife. She told me to go to Heritage Community Bank and not to trust anyone. What did you do with the passbook? I didn't have time to look at it then. Later at my house, Natalie saw it. She said it was probably empty, that her mother never had money, and offered to throw it away for me. I paused. Then, when I wasn't looking, she threw it in the trash. How do you know? I saw her through the kitchen window. She waited until I went outside, threw it away, and went out to meet someone. Derek Morrison. What did you do? I couldn't sleep that night. At 4:30 a.m. I dug through the trash and found the passbook. What did you find? Pages of recorded deposits going back to 1988. And on the last page, there were 7 red stamps. Unauthorized access attempts. Someone had tried to access my wife's account 7 times. Did you know who it was? Not at the time. The next morning I went to the bank. The manager told me there was $347,000 in the account. The courtroom murmured. And you had no idea this account existed? None at all. My wife had saved that money over 37 years without telling me. What else did you learn? He showed me security camera footage. 7 attempts to withdraw money using fake documents. Every single time, it was Natalie. I looked at my daughter. She was crying silently. He also told me my wife had a safety deposit box. Inside were 5 journals. My wife had recorded everything Natalie did over 5 years. Every lie, every theft. Andrea handed me a journal. Mr. Walsh, please read the entry dated March 14, 2020. My hands shook. Today I discovered Natalie forged my signature. I found a withdrawal slip in the recycling bin. My name, my account, but not my signature. I can't tell Gregory yet. He would never believe his favorite child is a thief. So I am documenting everything. My voice choked up. Your wife kept journals for 5 years? Yes. What else was in the box? Receipts. Natalie had borrowed $250,000 from me over 5 years for various reasons. Business expenses, medical bills. I gave her the money because she was my daughter. She never paid back a single cent. Did you know the total amount? No. I thought they were separate loans. I didn't realize it was $250,000 until I saw my wife's records. Andrea pulled out another document. And this is a loan payoff receipt? My wife paid off an $80,000 debt for my youngest daughter, Hannah. A debt that Natalie and Derek created through a fake investment scheme. My wife paid it without telling anyone. That's right. Hannah lived in hardship for 2 years, and I had no idea. Andrea picked up another journal. Read the entry dated August 12, 2021. Natalie told Gregory that I said he didn't spend enough time with me. I never said that. She is driving a wedge between us. She wants us divided so she can manipulate each of us separately, and it's working. Did your relationship with your wife change? Yes. She became distant, cold. I thought she didn't love me anymore, but it wasn't her fault. It was Natalie's. She lied to both of us, telling me my wife was upset and telling my wife I was tired of her. For 2 years, she drove us apart. Andrea walked to her table. Your Honor, entering Exhibit M, a letter written by Claudia Walsh, February 20th, 2025. 4 days before she passed away, she gave me this letter. Please read this letter to the jury. I open it. It is my wife's handwriting. Dearest Gregory, if you are reading this letter, I am gone. I am sorry that I could not explain while I was still alive. I wanted to tell you every day for 5 years, but I needed proof. I was protecting you from a difficult choice between your daughter and the truth. I could not make you choose, so I chose for both of us. I pause. Everything you need is in this box. 5 years of journals. Proof of the money Natalie stole. There is one more thing. Natalie is not working alone. Someone dangerous is using her. Please be careful. Protect Hannah. She is innocent. And please don't let Natalie get away with it. Not for my sake, but for everyone else she might hurt. I love you. Even when I seemed distant, I was always trying to protect you. Forever yours, Claudia. Courtroom is silent. Andrea's voice is gentle. Your wife asked you not to let Natalie get away with it. Why? Because Natalie didn't just steal from us. She also stole from 3 elderly people. Evelyn Tucker, Raymond Fisher, and Irene Fletcher. I look at them in the gallery. My wife knew that if Natalie got away with it, she would do it again. No further questions. Judge Morrison looks at Aaron. Cross-examination. Aaron stands up. Mr. Walsh, is it possible your wife was mistaken? That she misread Natalie's intentions? I look at him. My wife was a certified public accountant for 30 years. She documented every single theft with dates, amounts, and methods. That wasn't confusion. That was evidence. Aaron's jaw tightens. No further questions. Judge Morrison says, Court is adjourned for today. We will resume tomorrow at 9 o'clock. I step down from the witness stand. Hannah immediately comes over and wraps her arms around me. On the other side of the room, Natalie watches, her face streaked with tears. She mumbles something. Maybe I'm sorry. I turn my face away because an apology cannot undo 5 years of lies. An apology cannot bring Claudia back, nor can it save the people Natalie hurt. As the officer leads her away, I walk outside with the realization that I have just ruined my daughter's life to honor my wife. That was the hardest thing I have ever had to say. If you have read this far, please leave a comment below. I need to know someone heard what Claudia was trying to tell us. Before continuing, this story contains dramatic elements for educational purposes. If this isn't the kind of content you're looking for, feel free to stop right now. Justice doesn't feel like a victory. It's like closing a wound that will never fully heal. 4 hours after the jury left to deliberate, we received the call. They had reached a verdict. I sat in the gallery beside Hannah, her hand holding mine. Across the aisle, Evelyn Tucker, Raymond Fisher, and Irene Fletcher sat together. The 3 people my daughter had stolen from. 3 people waiting to see if the legal system would protect them. The jury returned, 12 stone-cold faces. None of them looked at Natalie. That was when I knew. Everyone stood up as Judge Morrison entered. We stood, then sat when she did. Has the jury reached a verdict? She asked. The 4 persons stood up, a woman in her 50s with gray hair. Your Honor, we have. As to count 1, elder financial abuse, how do you find the defendant? Natalie's shoulders twitched. Aaron placed a hand on her arm. Guilty. As to count 2? Guilty. Count 3? Guilty. The foreperson read through all 10 counts. Elder financial abuse, identity theft, forgery, conspiracy to commit fraud, attempted fraud, 7 counts, all guilty. When she finished, Natalie sobbed, covering her face with both hands, her entire body shaking. I felt nothing. No satisfaction, no relief, only emptiness. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen of the jury, Judge Morrison said. You are dismissed. She turned to Natalie. Ms. Walsh, please stand. Natalie slowly stood up with Aaron standing beside her. She was still crying, her face red and wet. Natalie Elizabeth Walsh. Judge Morrison's voice was firm. You have been found guilty on all counts. Before sentencing, I will hear victim impact statements. She looked around the gallery. Evelyn Tucker. Evelyn stood up. She was petite, 78 years old, wearing a purple wool coat. She walked to the front of the courtroom with careful steps. I trusted Natalie like my own granddaughter, she said, her voice soft but steady. She came to my house, drank tea in my kitchen, looked at photos of my late husband. She told me about an investment that would help me leave money for my grandchildren. I gave her $15,000, my entire savings. Her voice choked up. She took it and vanished. I couldn't afford my medication for 6 months. I trusted her and she stole my money. Evelyn sat down. Raymond Fisher stood up next. He was 83 years old, thin, wearing a veteran's cap. I served in Vietnam, came home, worked as a teacher for 40 years, and saved as much as I could for retirement. Natalie told me she was raising money for a veterans charity, showing me brochures and documents that looked very official. I gave her $22,000. He looked at Natalie. You stole the retirement money I earned serving this country, money I saved by teaching children. You looked me straight in the eye and lied. He sat down. Irene Fletcher stood last. She was 80 years old with snow-white hair and kind eyes now filled with tears. Claudia Walsh was my friend, she said. My neighbor for 15 years. We drank coffee every week talking about gardening and our children. When she got sick, Natalie offered to help me with home repairs. She said the roof needed fixing and took an $18,000 deposit. Irene's voice trembled. The repairs were never done, and Claudia never knew that her own daughter was stealing from her friend while she was dying. She looked at Natalie. You betrayed all of us. Your mother, your father, your sister, me, everyone who trusted you. Irene sat down. The courtroom was silent. Judge Morrison looked at Natalie. Do you have anything to say before sentencing? Natalie stood up, wiping her tears. I'm sorry, she whispered. I'm so sorry. I made terrible mistakes. I let someone else manipulate me. I hurt the people I love. If I could turn back time, I would. I'm sorry. Aaron sat down. Judge Morrison's expression remained unchanged. Ms. Walsh, I have heard your apology, but I have also read the 5-year journal written by your mother. I have seen the security footage of you attempting to steal from her 7 times. I have heard testimony from 3 elderly victims whom you defrauded. She paused. You showed no remorse until you were caught. You targeted vulnerable people, including your dying mother. This court has no tolerance for such cruelty. Judge Morrison looked down at her notes. For counts 1 through 3, elder financial abuse, the defendant is sentenced to 2 years in prison for each count, to be served consecutively. For counts 4 through 10, fraud and identity theft, the defendant is sentenced to 1 year in prison for each count. The total sentence is 6 years in federal prison. Natalie collapsed into her chair. Aaron caught her. In addition, the judge continued, the defendant must pay restitution in the amount of $347,000 to Gregory Walsh and $55,000 to the 3 elderly victims. Upon release, you will serve 5 years of supervised probation. The gavel came down. The trial was over. Natalie sobbed so hard she couldn't stand. 2 bailiffs helped her up and led her toward the side door. She looked at me one last time. I hope you're happy, Dad. I looked at my daughter, looking at a stranger with her face. I'm not happy, I said. But at last your mother is. The bailiffs took her away. Evelyn, Raymond, and Irene approached. One by one, they shook my hand. Thank you, Evelyn said. Thank you for standing up for us. Your wife was a brave woman, Raymond added. Irene hugged me. Claudia would be proud. I couldn't speak. I just nodded. Hannah and I walked out of the courthouse together. The late afternoon sunlight felt blinding after the dim interior of the courtroom. The world kept moving. People walked by. Cars zipped past as if nothing had happened. But everything had. Are you okay? Hannah asked. No, I said, but I will be. We stood there for a moment on the steps of the courthouse. Now what? She asked. Derek is still out there. The FBI is looking for him. I looked at her. Rebecca said they'll find him eventually. He's done this too many times. Someone always turns them in. Hannah nodded. And as for us, we go home. We find a way to keep going. I wrapped my arm around her shoulder. She leaned into me. Mom saved all that money for 37 years. What are you going to do with it? I thought about Claudia, about the journals, about the 3 people who had just thanked me for doing what she had done. Something important, I said. Something that would make her proud. We walked down the steps. Behind us, the courthouse doors closed. Natalie was going to prison. Derek was still out there. But Claudia's truth had prevailed. And for the first time in 3 months, I felt like I could breathe. The pain never really goes away, but it changes. After 8 months, I could finally breathe without feeling that sharp ache. Spring had arrived in Denver. Washington Park was green again, the surface of the lake reflecting the blue sky. Hannah and I walked along the path surrounding the water. We still did this every Sunday. I've been thinking about something, Hannah said. Her hair was cut shorter now, and she had started smiling again at dinner, a contrast to 3 years ago when I tried to talk to you about Natalie. I'm sorry I didn't fight harder. I stopped walking. Hannah, don't apologize. I'm the one who should be apologizing. I called you jealous. I chose Natalie over you time and time again. I let you down. I let your mother down. My throat tightened. I'm sorry. Her eyes filled with tears. You didn't know. You should have listened to me. I pulled her into a tight hug. I'm sorry it took losing everything for me to realize. She held on to me tightly. We didn't lose everything, Dad. We still have each other. We continued walking, passing joggers and families enjoying normal lives. I go to the cemetery every Wednesday, I said. Bring flowers. Sit for a while. Hannah nodded. She had gone with me twice, to Fairmont Cemetery, to Claudia's grave. The headstone was simple. Claudia Coleman Walsh, 1968 to 2025. Beloved wife and mother. I finished reading the journals, I said. All 5 of them. Yeah. It took 6 months. I could only read a little bit at a time. I sat down on a bench, and Hannah sat beside me. She wrote about her love for me on every single page, even when she was recording Natalie's lies. What did she write? There was an entry from 2 years ago, October 2023. She wrote, Today Gregory tried to hold my hand. I pulled away. It broke my heart, but I couldn't let him get close. If he asked the wrong questions, I would break down. I would tell him everything before I had enough evidence. So I remained cold, and I hate myself for it. Hannah's hand found mine. For 2 years I thought she didn't love me anymore. I wiped away a tear. But she loved me the entire time. She was just protecting me, carrying the burden all by herself. She was protecting all of us. Yesterday I went to the cemetery and told her I finished reading, that I understood, and that I forgave her. I turned to Hannah. I told her that what she did was the bravest thing I've ever seen. We sat in silence, watching the world move around us. Have you heard anything about Natalie? Hannah asked gently. She's at FCI Greenville in Illinois. 5 years at least. I leaned back. Aaron Mitchell sent a letter last month saying Natalie wants to see me, that she's taking classes, working with a counselor, and that she's changed. Do you believe it? I don't know, maybe. Or maybe she's still trying to manipulate you. I shrugged. Either way, I'm not ready. Maybe someday. And Derek? Still out there. The FBI thinks he's in Mexico. They'll find him eventually. We stood up and kept walking. I've been thinking about the money, I said. The $3 million. Yeah, Claudia saved it for 37 years. I kept asking myself, what would she want me to do with it? What do you think? I think she'd want it to mean something, to help people. I paused. I want to start a foundation, an organization to protect the elderly from financial abuse. Free legal aid, educational programs, a helpline. Hannah's eyes welled with tears. Dad, that's a wonderful idea. I want to call it the Claudia Coleman Foundation for Elder Safety. Mom would have loved that. I hope you'll help me run it, I said. She blinked. What? You're great with people. You understand brand design, and you know what it feels like to be manipulated. I took her hand. I can't do this alone. I need you. She pulled me into an embrace. Yes, of course, yes. We stood there holding each other. For the first time since Claudia passed away, I felt something other than grief. I felt a sense of purpose. When do we start? Hannah asked. Soon. I talked to Rebecca about it. She knows attorneys who specialize in elder law. And Evelyn, Raymond, and Irene want to help too. They want to serve as advisors and tell their stories. The people Natalie hurt. Right. They're turning their pain into protection for others. I looked up at the sky. That's what we're all doing now. Taking what Natalie and Derek destroyed and building something better. Hannah squeezed my hand. Mom would be so proud. I hope so. We walked back to the car. The setting sun painted the sky in shades of orange and pink. It was beautiful, as if the world were reminding us that beauty still existed. Dad, Hannah said, thank you for finally listening, for choosing justice, for choosing me. I pulled her close. I should have chosen you from the very beginning. I'm sorry it took me so long. We're here now. That's what matters. We got into the car and drove home through the streets of Denver, past the courthouse where Natalie was convicted, past the bank where Claudia had kept her secrets, moving beyond everything that had hurt us toward everything we were building. If my wife had kept that money for herself, she could have made Natalie rich. Instead, it was making the world a little bit safer. The small office consisted of just 3 rooms on the second floor of an old building in Capitol Hill, but it was ours. A desk, a filing cabinet, a phone line, and a sign on the door that read, Claudia Coleman Foundation for Elder Safety. 8 months after the trial, we opened our doors. Hannah stood beside me, holding a pair of scissors. Rebecca Stone was there, along with Evelyn Tucker, Raymond Fisher, Irene Fletcher, a few reporters, and some neighborhood residents who had heard about our mission. I looked at the ribbon stretched across the doorway, red like the stamps in Claudia's passbook, red like the warning she had left behind. Ready? Hannah asked. I nodded. She cut the ribbon and everyone clapped. Just like that, we were open. Inside, Hannah had designed everything. The walls were painted a soft, calming shade of light blue, Claudia's favorite color. On the walls were photos of her. Not formal portraits, just snapshots. Claudia in the garden. Claudia at Hannah's college graduation. Claudia laughing warmly. It's wonderful, I said. Hannah smiled. She would have loved it. Rebecca stepped forward. May I say a few words? Of course. She turned to the small crowd. I'm Detective Rebecca Stone with the Denver Police Department. I investigated Claudia Walsh's case. I've worked in law enforcement for 20 years. And I've seen a lot of financial abuse cases. Most go unreported. Victims feel ashamed, afraid. They don't know where to turn. She gestured toward the office. This foundation is going to change that. Free legal aid, financial education, a 24/7 hotline, support groups. This is what justice looks like after the trial ends. Everyone nodded. Evelyn wiped away a tear. Rebecca looked at me. Mr. Walsh, would you like to speak? I stepped forward and cleared my throat. My wife, Claudia, saved $3 million over 37 years. She did it quietly, carefully. She never told anyone. And when our daughter tried to steal it, Claudia didn't report her. She documented everything, built a record, and protected her family the only way she knew how. My voice steadied. Claudia passed away before she could see justice served. But she left us everything we needed to finish what she started. And now that money, the money she spent her lifetime saving, will be used to save others. That is her legacy. I looked at Hannah, Evelyn, Raymond, and Irene. This foundation exists because Claudia refused to let cruelty win. And because 3 people who were hurt by my daughter chose to turn their pain into protection for others. Evelyn stood up. I'm honored to be a part of this. Raymond nodded. We all are. Thank you, everyone, I said, all of you. We spent the rest of the afternoon giving tours, explaining our mission, and taking down the names of people who needed help or wanted to volunteer. When everyone left, only Hannah and I remained in the office. How do you feel? She asked. Like we're doing something meaningful. She smiled and pulled out her laptop. I've been tracking our progress. Want to see the impact? Even before the official grand opening, we had been working behind the scenes for 8 months, taking calls, connecting people with lawyers, with Rebecca helping us from behind the scenes. She turned the screen toward me. Claudia Coleman Foundation, 8-month impact report. 54, seniors assisted. 12 cases prosecuted. $340,000 recovered for victims. 8 support group meetings held. 120 attendees at financial literacy workshops. I stared at the numbers. 54 seniors. 54 people who might have lost everything. But now they had help, legal representation, and someone who believed them. Hannah closed the laptop. Mom's money is doing exactly what she would have wanted. I looked at the photo of Claudia on the wall, smiling and happy. Yeah, I said. It is. Hannah stood up. I need to grab something from the car. I'll be right back. She left, and I sat at the desk, looking around the office, at everything we had built from pain, 3 million, and the determination of a remarkable woman. My phone buzzed. It was Rebecca. Gregory, are you at the foundation? Yes, we just wrapped up the opening. Congratulations. Listen, I wanted to give you a heads up. Today we received a letter at the station from FCI Greenville. My chest tightened. Natalie? Yes, it's addressed to you. I'm having someone forward it, but I wanted to tell you first in case you don't want to read it. What does it say? I didn't open it. It's sealed. But the prison counselor called me and said Natalie is in therapy and taking classes. She wanted to write to you. All right. You don't have to read it, Gregory. You don't owe her anything. I know. Call me if you need anything. Thanks, Rebecca. I hung up. 2 days later, the letter arrived. I sat at the kitchen table, staring at the envelope. The return address was a federal prison. The handwriting was Natalie's, neat and careful, just like Claudia's. I almost threw it away, but I didn't. I opened it. Dear Dad, I know you will never forgive me. I don't deserve forgiveness. But I want you to know that I finally realize what I've done. I destroyed the people who loved me most. I spent 5 years lying, stealing, and manipulating. I told myself it was Derek's fault, that he made me do it, that I was the victim. But I wasn't. I chose to hurt you. I chose to hurt Mom. I chose to hurt Hannah every single time with every lie and every theft. Prison has given me time to understand why. To see who I really was. A coward, a thief, someone who valued money over love. Mom knew. She knew for 5 years, and she didn't give up. She built the case against me, yes, but she also always hoped I would stop. I woke up. I read the journals. The prosecution gave me copies. Every word she wrote about wanting to save me, wanting to believe I could be better. I wasn't better then, but I'm trying now. I'm taking classes, accounting like Mom, and counseling. I'm learning about the people I hurt, about elder abuse, and about what predators like Derek, and like me, do to families. I don't expect you to write back. I don't expect you to visit. I just want you to know that I am so sorry for everything. And I hope that one day I can become the person Mom once thought I could be. I hope you and Hannah are okay. I hope you're healing. Love, Natalie. I read it 3 times, folded it, and placed it in a drawer. I didn't throw it away, but I didn't reply either. Maybe someday, but not now. Hannah came home an hour later and saw me sitting at the table. Are you okay, Dad? Yeah, Natalie sent a letter. What did it say? That she's sorry, and that she's trying to change. Do you believe her? I don't know. I looked at my younger daughter, the one I should have protected better, back when I wasn't ready to see the truth. Hannah nodded and sat beside me. It's okay. You don't have to know right now. We sat in silence for a moment. Then Hannah's phone rang. She looked at the screen, her eyes widening. Dad, it's Rebecca. I answered. Rebecca? Gregory, the FBI just called. They found him. My heart skipped a beat. Derek? Yeah, Cabo San Lucas, Mexico. They're bringing him back. He'll be in court next week. I looked at Hannah, then at the letter from Natalie, and around the foundation we had built. Good, I said. It's time. Derek Morrison was finally caught, and justice for Claudia was nearly complete. It took a year, 2 countries, and 6 states, but they finally got him. Rebecca's call came on a Tuesday morning, exactly 12 months after Natalie was sentenced. I was at the foundation office reviewing grant applications with Hannah when the phone rang. "Gregory," Rebecca said. Her voice carried something I had never heard in it before, a deep sigh of relief. "We got him." I knew exactly who she meant. There was only one left. "Where?" "Cabo San Lucas." The FBI tracked him through a wire transfer he made to a girlfriend in Phoenix. They arrested him this morning at a beachfront apartment. He'll be extradited within 48 hours. Hannah looked up from her desk. I nodded at her and she covered her mouth with both hands. Derek Samuel Morrison, the man who had walked into my home 6 years ago as Natalie's boyfriend, the man who had taught my daughter how to steal from her own family. My dying mother. The man who had vanished a day before Natalie was arrested was finally caught. "There's more," Rebecca continued. "The FBI has been building this case for the past year. Gregory, Derek didn't just target your family. He targeted 11 other families across 6 states: California, Arizona, Florida, Texas, Colorado, and Oregon. A total of 12 families, including yours." I sat down slowly. How could that be? How much money? $8.7 million. That number hung in the air like a sentence. Hannah was crying now, silent tears streaming down her face. I reached across the table and held her hand. "The pattern was consistent," Rebecca said. "He targeted young women from wealthy families, usually in their late 20s or early 30s, working in senior care or social services. Women with access to vulnerable people. He would get close, learn about their families, and manipulate them into stealing. Once exposed, he vanished. The women went to prison, and he moved to another state." "How many women?" "7 that we know of. 2 in Florida, 2 in Arizona, 1 in Texas, 1 in California, and Natalie in Colorado. 3 of those women are still in federal prison. 1 committed suicide after serving 2 years. My chest tightened. Natalie was one of 7. 7 women he had ruined to steal their family fortunes. "And the families?" I asked, filled with deep sorrow. 3 elderly parents passed away before seeing justice. 2 families lost their homes. 1 man, a veteran in Texas, lost his entire pension and had to move in with his son in another state. The victim in Arizona was a woman with dementia whose daughter drained her account over 3 years. By the time anyone realized, the mother was in a state facility and the daughter was in prison. Derek was long gone. I thought of Claudia, her journals, 5 years of silent documentation, and her refusal to tell me until she had proof. She knew. Somehow she knew Derek wasn't just a bad boyfriend. "When is the trial?" I asked. "Next week, Denver District Court. They're charging him with wire fraud, conspiracy, interstate transportation of stolen money, and money laundering. The prosecutor wants you there, and Hannah, if she's willing." I looked at my daughter. She nodded immediately. "We'll be there," I said. A week later, the federal court felt entirely different from the county building where Natalie was tried. Larger, colder, more imposing. Derek was led in wearing an orange jumpsuit and leg shackles. His hair was shorter than I remembered, his face tanned from a year in Mexico. He looked relaxed, almost amused. That changed when he saw me. Our eyes met across the courtroom, and something flickered in his expression. Recognition, then calculation. He was still trying to find an angle. The judge, a woman in her 60s named Margaret Brown, reviewed the charges. 17 counts, each carrying up to 20 years in prison. Derek's lawyer, a public defender who looked exhausted before the hearing even began, entered a plea of not guilty. The judge set bail at $5 million, which was practically no different from $5 billion. Derek had no assets left. Everything he had stolen was either spent or hidden. Judge Williams said, "The defendant is remanded to federal custody pending trial. Trial date is set for March 15th. As the officers led Derek away, he turned back to look at me. I expected anger, maybe fear. Instead, he smiled. "Your wife was smart," he said, loud enough for the entire courtroom to hear. "Smarter than all of them. She was the only one who saw right through me before I could run. The officers pulled him toward the door, but he kept talking, his voice echoing across the marble floor. She built a case against her own daughter for 5 years. That's dedication. The doors closed, cutting off his words. Hannah was trembling beside me. Rebecca stood by my side, her jaw tight. "He's trying to get to you," she said softly. "Don't let him." But I wasn't angry. I felt something else, something like pride. Claudia had seen him. Not only had she seen him, but she understood him. She knew that speaking out without proof would tear the family apart, so she documented everything: dates, amounts, methods, patterns. She built a legal case that would hold up in court to protect Hannah and me even after she was gone. She defeated him without ever having to confront him directly. That was true strength. 3 months later, Derek's trial lasted 2 weeks. The prosecution brought forth victims from all 6 states. Elderly parents who lost their life savings, sons and daughters who discovered too late what had been stolen, and families torn apart by betrayal. The defense tried to portray Derek as a victim, abandoned as a child, bouncing through foster homes, just trying to survive. His lawyer argued that the women acted of their own accord, and that Derek was simply a boyfriend who didn't ask enough questions. The jury didn't buy it. On the 14th day, they returned a guilty verdict on all 17 counts. Sentencing took place a month later. Judge Williams sentenced Derek to 18 years in federal prison without the possibility of parole. Restitution was set at $8.7 million to be divided among the 12 victim families. Looking down at Mr. Morrison from the bench, the judge said, "You spent the better part of 2 decades preying on families. You targeted trust. You weaponized love. You turned daughters against mothers, sisters against fathers. You left a trail of broken families and empty bank accounts across this country." She paused, letting her words sink in. "This court will show you no leniency. You never showed your victims any mercy. 18 years in prison, and I hope you spend every single day of that sentence thinking about the lives you destroyed." Derek said nothing. His face was now blank, all his charm and calculation finally gone. As they led him away, I thought of Claudia's letter. "Please don't let Natalie get away with it. Not for my sake, but for everyone else she might hurt." Claudia hadn't just saved our family. She saved every family Derek would have targeted next. I drove home. That afternoon, Hannah sat beside me. We didn't talk much. There was nothing left to say. Pulling into the driveway, I sat for a moment with my hands on the steering wheel, looking at the house Claudia and I had bought 30 years ago. "It's really over, isn't it?" Hannah said softly. "Yeah," I replied, "it's really over." She reached over and squeezed my hand. "Mom would be proud of us." I nodded, unable to speak. "Claudia, if you're watching, we got him. Both of them." In 8 months, the Claudia Coleman Foundation had helped 54 people, conducted 12 prosecutions, recovered $340,000, protected countless lives, and saved many families. Derek Morrison and Natalie Walsh were both serving time in federal prison. Claudia's legacy wasn't the money she had saved. It was the people we were going to protect with that money. Justice didn't feel like a victory. It felt like closure, and perhaps, finally, a new beginning. 18 months after finding that passbook in the trash, I finally understood what my wife had been trying to tell me all along. The truth doesn't automatically set you free. First, it demands that you do something. It requires you to look at what you don't want to see, to admit what you don't want to admit, and to choose what is right over what is easy. Claudia chose the truth, and it cost her everything, but in the end, it saved us all. I sat on a bench in Washington Park on a late spring Sunday afternoon. Hannah sat beside me, one hand gently rocking a stroller. Inside the stroller, wrapped in a pink blanket with tiny fists curled close to her chest, lay my granddaughter, Claudia Grace Walsh, just 3 weeks old. Hannah had told me the name 2 months before she was born. I cried in the hospital parking lot for 20 minutes. "She has your wife's nose," Hannah said, smiling down at the baby. "Look at this little girl." I leaned down and observed my granddaughter's face. She's right. Claudia's nose, Claudia's chin, maybe even Claudia's stubbornness, considering how she screamed through the first diaper change that morning. "Your mother would have loved her," I said softly. "I know," Hannah's voice choked up. I wish she could have met her. We sat in silence for a while, watching joggers pass by and dogs chase tennis balls on the lawn. The park was filled with families, children riding bicycles, couples holding hands, life continuing as usual. Last week, the foundation reached a major milestone, Hannah said after a moment. We've helped over 150 people now. In 18 months, 150 victims of elder financial abuse had received legal assistance, counseling, or financial recovery. I nodded. I knew those numbers. I reviewed them every week. We've recovered $1.2 million for victims across 8 states, Hannah continued. And 8 states have adopted our model. California, Arizona, Texas, Oregon, New Mexico, Nevada, Utah, and Montana. They are setting up their own programs based on what we built. 1.2 million 8 states, 150 lives protected. Claudia's 3 million was doing what she had always wanted, helping people, stopping predators like Derek and Natalie before they could destroy another family. Evelyn called yesterday, I said. She wanted to tell you that her grandson was accepted to college on a full scholarship. He's the first in their family to get one. Hannah smiled. That's thanks to the money we recovered for her, $15,000. That money paid for his SAT prep course and application fees. $15,000. The amount Natalie had stolen from a 78-year-old woman who had trusted her. Now, that $15,000 was helping a kid go to college. Raymond is doing great too, Hannah said. He's back to teaching. He volunteers at the VA 3 days a week, helping other veterans avoid financial scams. Raymond Fisher, 83 years old, who had $22,000 stolen from him and spent 6 months thinking he had lost everything, was now teaching others how to protect themselves. And Irene, she's now a member of our advisory board. Last week she told me she's never been happier. She said helping others through their struggles helped her heal. Irene Fletcher, 80 years old, $18,000. Claudia's friend and neighbor who was betrayed while Claudia was dying, was now part of a mission to ensure that never happened to anyone else. I looked down at little Claudia, fast asleep in the stroller, her tiny chest rising and falling rhythmically, peaceful, safe, and loved. Your mother would be so proud of you, I told Hannah. She reached out and squeezed my hand. She'd be proud of both of us. We stayed at the park for another hour, watching the sun slowly set in the sky. Afterward, we drove to Fairmount Cemetery. It had become our Sunday ritual. First the park, then the cemetery. Hannah held the baby, and I held the flowers. We walked slowly up the hill to Claudia's grave. The headstone was simple, gray granite with her name and dates. Claudia Coleman Walsh, 1968 to 2025. She chose truth over comfort. Hannah had chosen the inscription, and I had approved it immediately. I knelt and placed the flowers at the base of the headstone. Pure white flowers, Claudia's favorite. Hannah stood a few steps back, holding the baby against her chest, giving me space. She always did. Hi, Claudia, I said softly. It's me again. At first, saying those words felt awkward, like talking to a piece of stone. But over the last 18 months, it had gotten easier. Not because I thought she could hear me, but because I needed to say the things I had never said while she was alive. I brought Hannah and the baby here today, your granddaughter, Claudia Grace. She's beautiful. You would have loved her so much. I ran my fingers over each letter of her name. The foundation helped 150 people this week. 150 people. Claudia, can you believe we've recovered over $1 million? 8 states are now using our model. You're helping people all across the country. My voice caught. I cleared my throat and continued. Thank you for the Passbook. Thank you for the journals. Thank you for loving me enough to protect me, even when it broke your heart. Even when it meant pushing me away, carrying all that burden alone for 5 years. I closed my eyes and let the tears flow. If only I had listened sooner. If only I had seen Hannah's pain. If only I had believed that you were distant because of Natalie, not because of me. If only I had trusted you enough to ask the hard questions. I opened my eyes and looked at the headstone once more. But I promise you this, your truth will never be forgotten. 150 people are safe because of you, and that number will keep growing. Every single day, one more person will be safe, protected because you had the courage to document what Natalie was doing, because you built a case instead of just making an accusation, because you chose the hard path. I placed my hand on the cool granite. Rest in peace, Claudia. Justice has been served. Derek is in prison for 18 years. Natalie is serving her sentence. Hannah and I are healing. And your legacy is saving lives every single day. Hannah stepped up and stood beside me. She knelt and placed one hand on the stone next to mine. Hi, Mom, she said, and we miss you every day. Baby Claudia stirred in Hannah's arms and let out a soft coo. Hannah smiled through her tears. Your granddaughter says hi, too. We stayed for a few more minutes, then stood up and walked slowly back to the car. As I was driving home, Hannah turned to me. Dad, I need to tell you something. What is it? I went to see Natalie again last week. It's the second time. I kept my eyes on the road, my hands firm on the steering wheel. How is she different? Hannah began carefully. She's taking accounting and business ethics classes. She goes to therapy twice a week. She talks a lot about Mom, about what Mom did, and how much she regrets everything. I said nothing. She asked about you, Hannah continued. She wanted to know if you'd ever visit. I told her honestly, I don't know if he ever can. I know I told her that, but Dad, I think she's really changing. I pulled into the driveway and turned off the engine. We sat in silence for a moment. Do you think you'll ever forgive her? Hannah asked softly. I looked at my daughter, now 27 years old, stronger than ever, and a mother herself. I don't know, I said. But I know your mother would want me to leave that door open. Not for Natalie's sake, but for mine. Hannah nodded. That's fair. She has 4 years left. Maybe by then I'll be ready, I said. Maybe not. But I won't close the door completely. Your mother wouldn't want that. Hannah reached over and hugged me. I love you, Dad. I love you too, sweetheart. That evening, after Hannah and the baby had gone home, I sat in the living room with a cup of coffee and looked at the framed photo on the mantelpiece. It was Claudia and me on our wedding day 30 years ago, young, hopeful, and certain we had everything figured out. We didn't have anything figured out, but we loved each other. And in the end, that love was strong enough to endure betrayal, secrets, and even death. Some say the truth hurts, and they are right. The truth shattered my family, sent my daughter to prison, and exposed that the marriage I thought I knew was built on secrets I had failed to see. But in the end, the truth was the only thing that could heal us. It was the only thing that endured. My wife knew that. And now, so do I. The Claudia Coleman Foundation will continue to grow. More families will be protected. More predators will be stopped. More lives will be saved. All because one woman had the courage to choose the truth over comfort. And because of that choice, her legacy will live on forever. Looking back on this family story, I see a man who was blind when he should have been vigilant. I trusted too easily. I ignored the warning signs. I chose comfort over the truth. Don't be like me. Listen when your intuition tells you something is wrong. Pay attention when one child warns you about another. Look at the patterns, not just the tears. Because manipulators don't announce themselves. They disguise themselves as the people you love most. However, this isn't the story of a father's revenge, though some might see it that way. It's a father's reckoning with his own blindness. A father's stand against the lies that nearly destroyed what was left of his family. Here is what I have learned. God gives us signs. Claudia's coldness was not rejection. It was protection. Hannah's fear was not jealousy. It was the truth. Even Natalie's flawless facade was a warning I refused to read. God spoke through every moment I ignored. The greatest lesson of this family story isn't about the money saved or the criminals caught. It's about what we do when we finally see the truth. Do we hide? Do we make excuses? Or do we stand up no matter the cost? Claudia taught me that love sometimes means building a case in silence. Hannah taught me that forgiveness doesn't require immediate reconciliation. And Natalie taught me that even your own blood can betray you if you allow them to. God doesn't prevent betrayal, but He gives us the strength to overcome it. If this family story sounds familiar, if you see yourself in my mistakes, don't wait. Protect the people who tell you uncomfortable truths. Document what you see. And remember, sometimes the cruelest thing you can do for someone you love is to let them get away with destroying others.